Everything gets quiet when I start time.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Pittsburg City Commission to order this evening. Before we have our flag salute, I'd just like to apologize for the late start. We've had some technical difficulties. But if you'll join me in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a proclamation this evening. Office of Mayor, City of Pittsburg, Kansas, a proclamation. Whereas the Shrine Bowl of Kansas Incorporated, sponsored by the 5 Shrine Centers of Kansas, namely Abdallah of Overland Park, Arab of Topeka, Isis of Salina, Midian of Wichita, and Mirza of Pittsburg, will sponsor their 43rd annual All-Star Football Game on July 30th, 2016 in Emporia, Kansas, and continue the tradition of philanthropy. And whereas over the 90 years, the ancient Arabic order of the Nobles of the Mystic Shrine of North America, through its network of hospitals, has treated more than 865,000 children with orthopedic difficulties, and in more recent years treated thousands of severely burned children through their burn institute. And whereas the city of Pittsburg may aid this worthy and impartial work and further the efforts of great clarity in their support of this philanthropy event to favor the unfortunate children regardless of race and creed. And whereas All-Stars Will Mangarelli of Pittsburg High School and Orion Battaglia of St. Mary's Cogan High School will be representing the city of Pittsburg in this 43rd annual Shrine Bowl football game. Now therefore, I, John Ketterman, Mayor of the city of Pittsburg, Kansas, do hereby proclaim July 30th, 2016 as Kansas All-Star Football Shrine Bowl Day in Pittsburg, and urge all the citizens to join in this observance.
I'd just like to thank everybody for supporting me over the years as I played football for Pittsburgh. I would like to thank the Shriners for having me in the Shrine Bowl, just for doing the thing that I love and playing football. But something that I love more than football is I love kids. I love my little brother right here, and I love little kids. There's a volunteer class at Pittsburg High School where you could go to elementary schools and play with kids and hang out with them, and that was one of my favorite classes I've ever done. And so it's something I'm really excited and looking forward to. Is not just the football, but the kids there, the Shriner kids, and being able to build relationships with them and just hang out with them and play or find the meaning of why we really play football. So thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, open the floor for public input. Is there anybody here to speak about anything this evening? Not, I'll close the public input and move to consent agenda. Are there any items to be removed? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call vote.
Gray.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Ketterman.
Aye.
Munzel.
Aye.
Murnane. Aye.
Okay. All right, special presentation, Southeast Kansas Career and Technical Education Center of Crawford County, a presentation. Michelle Hookey, Executive Director of Southeast Kansas Career and Technical Education Center of Crawford County, will provide a report on the growth of the KTEC program. Michelle?
Thank you. And if you'd like, you can call it CTEC for short. Makes it
Okay.
a little less of a mouthful. So
Thank you for having me here today. I appreciate it. And of course, without you all, without the city of Pittsburgh, this wouldn't have been possible. So I appreciate you all for what you do, the time you put in, the extra time you put in, Monica especially, and because she helps me a lot, not because I don't expect you do lots of extra things, but it's really been great for this community, for me especially. It's been wonderful. So I appreciate you guys, and I like it. This time I was hired in August of last year. And so I felt like it would be really good for you guys to see all the things we've done for the last year. Before I was hired, really, CTEC, from what I know, has been a work in progress for, 20 plus years. I spoke with a gentleman yesterday who said, when I moved here in 1980, this was a dream that this community had. And so to be sitting in my office having that conversation with him was really pretty cool. I was hired after, in 2014, November of 2014, the facility was purchased, and Gene Bicknell, of course, was pretty instrumental in that happening. So, but until that point, that was really the first step in this facility. And then it was in June of that year they decided to go on the hunt for an executive director. I started, and this is everything that's happened since. So from there, I'd like to show you a little bit about what's been going on at CTEC. So as you can see, this is our board of directors. We have someone representing the board from each district in Crawford County. Of course, Carl Wood represents the county, Monica represents the city, and each school district in our county has someone who represents, typically, as you can see, it's a superintendent. Casey Coots represents Southeast. St. Mary's Colgan is represented by Mike Elder. He also works at Pitt State, and he's a career and tech ed guru, so he's very helpful for sure. And Blake Benson, of course, which is someone you all are very familiar with. So the next slide is our programs at a glance. This is everything that we have currently. Whenever I started in August, we did not have the HVAC program. That was one of the projects we worked on this year. These programs here, you can see the limit per section. For welding is 16 per section. We have 1 full-time instructor, 2 adjunct instructors. Construction trade is 20 per section, 1 full-time instructor, 2 adjunct instructors. The 2 adjunct instructors are an electrical instructor and a plumbing instructor. Masonry is 20 per section, 1 full-time instructor. And then, of course, the HVAC lab is 20 per section with 1 full-time instructor and 1 adjunct instructor. All of the individuals who work with these programs are specifically hired for these programs. All of that runs through Fort Scott Community College. That's also something notable. I'm the only person really technically that works for CTEC. So our program information, just so you guys know when they do enter our program, what the options are for those individuals. For the HVAC program, you can get a certificate or an Associate of Applied Science. For the construction trades, you can get a certificate in the NCCER. That is something that is nationally recognized. That's an accreditation that anywhere you go within the United States, that's a recognized credential. So it applies all over the place. So Fort Scott really felt like that was important. We feel like it's very important for them to be able to work anywhere. Of course, we're really banking that they'll work here locally. That's what we're here to do, is to help them find opportunities right here in our backyard. But if they happen to find something else, then they can go and that credential will move with them. Same thing with masonry. In welding, it's an AWS certificate, so that's the American Welding Society. This is just one certification they can get. Of course, all of these programs, there's just dozens and dozens of certificates that you can get, but these are the ones that are most important, most recognized. In spring of this year, we had 27 certifications and 2 graduate with an associate degree. This is something that's very exciting, very fresh news. This last Friday, we had 2 individuals placed nationally at the Skills USA competition. One individual, he was the winner last year, actually, in carpentry, 1st place in the nation. So that's Matt Ballmer's his name. Very cool, 2 years in a row. And then Mac Odell, he's the student who went to the World of Masons in Vegas and won, he tied for 1st place. And he was actually put in a category of 25-year-olds, and he's going to be a senior this year. So we'll see what he does next year, but I'm pretty sure that he'll just continue to really impress us all. This is our enrollment in the fall, this last fall. This does not include HVAC. Most of the students we have at CTEC are high school students. A lot of that has to do with the Senate Bill 155 money, and of course the incentives for Senate Bill 155. We have really the smallest of the demographic is the over 22. This was about 106 students in the fall. Our spring enrollment, welding is the biggest program. I think it will just continue to be the biggest program for a while. Masonry was down this year. We've worked to really recruit. This last semester, I know that Nicole has spent quite a bit of time recruiting in the different schools to make sure that we could get that program up. And then, of course, we do have a room in HVAC and a little room in carpentry as well. But this is our enrollment this last at 109. Part of the reason that it's not a lot different than the fall is in the fall we offer more programs within carpentry, so it's those plumbing and electrical classes that they don't offer the full year round because it's just a piece of the construction program. I thought this might be interesting for you guys to see. The majority of the students out at CTEC come from Crawford County. There's about 5% enrollment that's female and 95% male. And you can see the average age per program. HVAC program is about 28. Masonry is a little under 18. Construction trades is a little over 18. And welding is your typical college age student. This will be hard for you to see over there. I know this is really small. I thought it might be fun for you guys to see all the different counties that send. Of course, Crawford County, again, sends the most. And you can see the orange is the welding program. So you can see what counties that sends from. Kind of the light green is the HVAC program. The darker green is masonry. And then the yellow is construction trades. So I just thought you might like to see where all people are coming from. And I think this semester was interesting for me to see, especially. We have some individuals coming from out of state and really from all over Kansas. So I thought that was fun to see that it wasn't just here locally, that maybe we're starting to draw from other counties. The major donors, of course, Gene Bicknell and the National Christian Foundation. Without that donation, purchasing the facility wouldn't have been possible. And I know many of you were integral in making that piece of that happen. So thank you for that. And then that next piece, the $300,000 from the city of Pittsburgh and the citizens of Pittsburgh, we thank you for that. Crawford County, $125,000 for the next 3 years. The Kansas Crossing is one that we're really looking forward to. That will start hopefully this next year in the spring. So that'll be $400,000 a year for the next 10 years, or 1% of the total gaming revenue. So the adult ed program, I put computer lab chairs. That might seem a little silly to you, but furniture is expensive. And when we started this new computer lab, that was really pretty huge for a program that really doesn't have a lot. They donated those chairs to us, and that was really great. Pittsburg State University donated 10 computers, monitors, all the accessories we needed to be able to get our computer lab up and running. An anonymous manufacturer donated 23 units to the HVAC program, they're beautiful. It was used in their manufacturing facility for testing and research, so barely used brand new units to go with our nice, beautiful, brand new lab. So we're excited about that. That was a value of about $25,000. This last year, the Perkins grant, 10 simulation welders were added, 3 welding stations were added, and 10 HVAC toolkits. This is a recent development as well. About $23,000 worth of tools were donated for students who would ordinarily have a more difficult time being able to afford those. So disadvantaged students will have access to that next semester. Our major projects, the biggest this year was the HVAC lab. It started in November and ended in January. It was pretty fast and furious, and they were able to get done. We worked with Tri-State on that. They were wonderful to work with. That was definitely a fun time. So the students were able to, as a part of getting up and running with the program, put the units together. So kind of unpacking and getting everything set up was a part of their first semester back. Some of them might have liked it. I know Chris liked it, but probably some of them didn't think it was as fun. But they were able to get a real hands-on look at what it looks like to set one up from the bottom up. The Kansas Department of Children and Families, this is a new program that we just added. It's called the Partners for Success program. We'll be working with individuals who are on food stamps to get employability training. So that just started this last, they're about halfway through their 8 weeks, and we'll be graduating soon with that first class. That'll go on for the next 3 years. We added a computer lab. This is a part of what the Kansas Department of Children and Families need for their program, but it's also really great for this next semester and moving forward. Night classes, it gives us a lot of options with our facility. We also hope to do some testing right now. Well, at least before, we weren't able to do any testing for any certifications before, but now we'll be able to because we actually have the facility to do that. We had some electrical upgrades as well. With the new units in the welding area, we had to add some electrical, and especially with HVAC, that was about a $25,000 project to be able to run programs concurrently to have enough juice to be able to do that. So that was another project. Administrative office renovation. Whenever I started, it needed a little sprucing up, and we did just a little bit of sprucing up. So we painted and just made the place look like a professional learning environment. That was the most important thing. The security was a really huge piece of what I felt like and what the board felt like puzzle for the students to be safe out there and secure. So we worked on the exterior lighting to make sure all of it was functioning appropriately. We rekeyed the entire facility and replaced all the locks. We have a new monitoring system with our partnership with Crowcan. We have cameras, alarm panels, glass break sensors, the whole 9 yards. And then, of course, the gigabit internet installation. That's it makes it really possible for us to expand programs out there, and that again is with our partnership with Crowcan. And of course, without Jay Byers, is he? Yeah, Jay Byers, you were a huge part of being able to make that fiber internet connection happen in Pittsburgh, so thank you for that. This is the stuff that Monica really helped me on. I'm telling you, she's been a tremendous asset to me. The city of Pittsburgh really too. Jamie Clarkson helped me with our financial reporting and how that looks. It's exactly like what you guys see at your meetings is how we report our financials. So Blake said something earlier about me being a one-woman show, but that's not at all the case. I have really great resources all around me to help me with a lot of the things you see here. So with the communications, we have social media, website, the Google business. Before I started, if you searched for CTEC, you would have never found it. You would have never found us on a map. You would have never found any information about it online. Now you can. Also, the county helped a little bit with Brandon Spar, who works with them in technology. He helped me a little bit with getting some of that off the ground. Henry can attest to the 501c3 application we've been working on. We've literally been working on it all year, and so we're in review now. That's really good news for us. Our agreements with Fort Scott, we now have an agreement with Fort Scott and how we operate and work together. And of course, Greenbush helps with kind of processing my employment, and so we have a partnership with them as well. And then as you see here, these are just some of the things that we worked on this year, but there was a lot of details that needed to be sorted out organizationally and took a lot of time and a lot of patience, and of course, you know, you're going to think I'm kind of kissing up to Monica, but she really did help me a lot with a lot of this, so I'm very grateful for that. So a lot of that is done now, and I think very important piece of what we were trying to do. We got off the ground, we were up and running, and we needed to fill in some blanks. So here's some of our goals for the next year. We're going to be looking at expanding different options with our partnership with Fort Scott. As you guys know, they pared down their CDL program, but there's still a really big need for testing and really the classes themselves. So we'll be working with them to expand some of the services with the CDL program, some community classes as well. Growing Growers is a little more detailed, and I can send you guys some more information about that, but it's all about being able to provide information and education and training for individuals who are interested in local food production. And so we're working with the extension office in Girard to see what a program might look like at CTEC. So potentially a demo farm and some educational pieces that Fort Scott can fill in with their already existing ag program and potentially adding some horticulture options with that. So those are some things we're looking at this year. Short-term certifications, that's something we really don't do right now. Right now, it's either you get a 1-year certificate or a 2-year associate degree. So we're really looking at that next piece is an individual who just wants a specific skill so they can apply for a job operating a forklift or whatever it might be. But maybe you're a business and you want to be able to provide training for all your employees or a few of your employees. And it might be in computers and technology, it might be supervisory, it might be maintenance operations, it might be something as simple as customer service. We're looking at being able to provide those kind of custom opportunities for businesses locally, which I think is a need here that we have. So those are things we're looking at too. And then virtual certifications. We're also working with Pittsburg High School on the automotive technology program to see what it might take to have that at CTEC. And then we have new classrooms that we submitted an application for a grant, and hopefully we'll be able to add 3 new classrooms so that some of these things that we're talking about here, we'll have a place to do those. Right now we really don't. We have one giant classroom that's not really a professional learning environment. It's has a lot that needs done to it. So we're working on that as well. Those are some of the things we're looking at doing in the next year. Of course, this is a new venture, so it could change. It will most likely change and grow and adapt to meet the needs of our area. So that's everything I have for you guys today. That's about as pared down as I could get it.
That's good.
I could talk for days.
Lots of information.
Yeah, do you guys have any questions for me?
I just want, you said that you had 27 graduate certificates and 2 do you know whether they were able to get jobs here? Did they get any jobs or?
That's a good question, and I don't have the numbers on that, but I know that typically it's about a 90% placement rate in the programs. So most of the instructors have a hard time keeping students in the program because they're plucked off before they can finish a lot of times. So, but I can find that. That would be good to know, and I'm sure they have that. So I can get that information.
Thanks for all your work.
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for letting me come up here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have the 5-year financial forecast. City Manager Darren Hall and Director of Finance Jamie Clarkson will provide information regarding the city's 5-year financial forecast.
Good evening, Mayor, City Commissioners. Hopefully I won't have technical difficulties.
That was a good one, John. I feel like we're at a wedding waiting on the bride to arrive. All the men are turning around and looking.
Okay, I think we're ready to roll. As you recall, back on May 21st, Saturday, City Commission and staff worked on going over the 5-year financial plan for the years 2016 through 2020. And City Manager and I will be giving a little overview of that, results of that meeting. If you recall from your handout, there was a budget calendar in there. This is the budget calendar we had in there. Today's June 28th, which is about the 4th or 5th one down on the slide there, where we're presenting the 5-year plan. Some important dates after that is, well, I'll do the final revenue projections by the end of this week. On the July 12th meeting, City Manager will present the submitted 2017 budget to you guys. On the July 26th Commission meeting, we'll take action on that proposed budget. It has to be adopted in some form that night, or approved, I'm sorry, approved that, so I can put it in the paper on the 26th to publish and have a public hearing. And then the formal adoption of the budget will take place on the August 9th meeting. And then I will prepare the state form, which is about a 30-page document that's how they want it. And then I'll send it to the county for certification. Then along in September, we're planning on bringing the 5-year capital improvements plan to you guys for formal approval on that as well. Executive summary. The 2030 visioning process goes into how we adopt our program budget, and that consists of housing, economic development, infrastructure improvement, and public wellness. In addition to that, we recommend to rebuild reserves to a minimum acceptable level and to establish and maintain a debt management plan.
Okay, revenues, everybody's favorite subject. This is our pie chart. This basically is our city's revenues. Hopefully you can see it. The thing that really jumps out at you that you should notice is there's 3 large pieces. The charges for services is really our utility. So whether it's stormwater, wastewater, or water, those are or sewer, those are the charges that we incur for those utilities. You've got the other revenue at the top, which reflects, I think, our transfers more than anything. And then the 2 big pieces that stand out, or should stand out, are the sales taxes and the property taxes. Without those, we would be in an interesting place. $41 million is the total, and that's usually based on somewhere over $30 million of revenues, and then the bookkeeping's about another $10 million. Everything starts with assessed valuation. Everything we do is about creating wealth and value in our community. I think you heard from the Dr. Davidson's report. Housing isn't about pricing, it's about value. That resonates with us. We want to have value in the recreational facilities that we have, and the places to eat. They need to be good, wherever the streets are. We want them to be high quality. And it all ties back to having a value in our community and increasing the value of our existing community without having to worry about growing and having tens of thousands of people move in. So this is by no means bleak. Coming from where we came in 2008, we were $10 million less than the year before. We've come a long way back. We've held the line. This is actually the 5-year financial forecast, so this has not been updated with our recent 1.3% assessed valuation increase that we learned that we were going to get this week, which will be the first time since 2008 that our assessed valuation actually went up. So it may not sound like a lot to some people. It's $50,000, but it's a big deal. And up is up, and we'll take it. So anyway, but for the projection, for the most part, that we used is just flat. This is the mill rate as it breaks down by jurisdiction. City of Pittsburgh, Crawford County, USD 250, we're all kind of just split right about the same place. Preliminary discussions with USD 250 are that they had good news on Friday when the legislature actually passed some legislation to give them some money. The district thinks that may actually come back in the form of a 1 or 2 mil decrease in their budget for the upcoming year, which is good news. The county is looking at what we know is a $0.5 million increase for mental health and is it drugs and
Drug and alcohol
treatment? Excuse
treatment,
me.
yeah.
So that's coming. They may do a little bit more, but for the most part, that's the lion's share. The state of Kansas gets their little bit, and then the Kansas Wildcat Extension number 14 is basically what we found out this week.
It's for the 4-H programs.
It's a combination of several
Yeah.
several different ones, but it's not significant, but it is in there. The chart that everybody likes to look at, what's the tax impact on a $100,000 home? This isn't anything new. These aren't new taxes. This is strictly where we are right now as a city. Once again, it's kind of the thirds, as you would guess. City of Pittsburgh, Crawford County, USD 250, and then you see how the impact on the other two. It's just another way of looking at the same information. Pittsburgh sales tax rate, 9.25. The state gets 6.5% of that. The city's at 1.75, which is kind of good, I think, when you think about the overall rate and how little we actually receive as a city. The state's the one that's driving up the big sales tax number. And the county gets 1%. If you break our 1.75 down even farther, more good news. Let's start with public safety debt. That's a 0.5 cent. That's our biggest piece, tied with public safety for our biggest piece. That's the debt on this facility and fire station number 1, and that is coming off in 2017. So that should be good news to everyone. Exciting. It's been I remember when I got here, I looked at the budget and thought, man, I can't wait. I hope I'm here when that comes off. And you know what? It's coming off. So that's a big deal. These are nice facilities. I know there was some grumbling when they were built, but they're always going to be here now. They're quality, and they're about to be paid for. So that's good news. Street maintenance, that was the recent renewal for the street preservation. Public safety, that's the one we did back in 2013 to address the 15 new officers and the 3 new investigators for drugs and the crime analyst and what's going to be now a special prosecutor and on and on and on. So the other 3, economic development, capital outlay, memorial auditorium, were approved to go on as long as we need them. And with that, we get to the 1.75, a big part of our budget. This is an interesting chart. I don't know if we showed it before. This actually tells you how much retail sales in dollars that generates that sales tax revenue that we get. So as you can see, back in 2006, I'd hate to guess what that was. At 320, something like that, 300 million. We peaked in 2008, and then away we went with the Great Recession. But if you look at 2015, we're pretty much back. So good news. And basically, the story to take away from there is about $400 million in retail sales is what leads us to get. And that's why Blake's always trying to get more and more retail and more options, because that's more money for our community. Oh, did you go forward on me?
No?
Is that my fat finger there? We won't even talk about franchise. No.
He's hurrying.
Did you go back?
Right.
You tried. Look at that. Wrong way again.
Yeah, you're going forward.
It only goes one way. We're done. That was it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think we can go back. We're gone. We're in the twilight zone. Done.
There we go.
Look at that. That's where we were?
One more.
One more.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Oh, the franchise tax one.
This slide really isn't worth all this build-up. We'll go ahead and humor everybody now that we got there. Anyway, this is the franchise tax. Basically, these are all franchise agreements. Any increase to any of these would lead to an increase back to the user. So it's not something where we go and try to negotiate, let's go from 5% to 6% with electricity, because they're just going to pass it right on to the consumer. So these would look like tax increases if they went up. As you can see, they're pretty much flat, and we'll see if we can't get the right button now.
Yep.
I'm afraid to touch anything now. I don't know what I did.
It's just a little slow.
The annual tax retail, we're still going backwards, Jimmy.
Yeah.
We were twice.
There we go.
All right, my favorite slide of all time. This tells the story. This is our revenue picture. It's not a pie chart. The big red blob in the middle is our sales tax. That's our number one producer of revenue to pay for services. The colors may be different to people at home. I don't know. The next one I believe is blue. That's our property tax. As you work down, you get to see the franchise taxes, and then at the end, you've got the public utility transfers to the general fund. But what you see now is a little blue sliver on the top. That is the casino. It's nice to have a new revenue. That's one thing that keeps us healthy, I think, is that we have a balance of revenues. We don't just have one car dealership and that guy moved away, we'd be in trouble. And not only do we have a lot of different businesses, but we have two real substantial revenues, the property tax and the sales tax that keep us healthy as we can be. And we're looking forward to that blue line, possibly. We're not sure what that blue line is going to be, but Jamie's so conservative, it's not much right now. It's just a little sliver, but we'll work on them.
I had a quick
You bet.
question. In 2018, it looked like the sales tax dropped a little bit. What was that?
That's where the public safety
That's
sales
the
tax
half
for the
cent.
debt falls off.
Paying the debt, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, as much as we would like to just show it renewed and repurpose it, we think there's probably going to be some discussion, so we showed it coming off. But it's still pretty healthy without it. We have done a lot. Public utility revenue, not much excitement here. We're pretty conservative. We have, as we're going to get to in a minute, we're pretty healthy on the fund balances, so we're looking at, I think, a 1% increase is what we built, and that's basically the cost of living. You have to increase it as you go. You don't want to wait 6 years and then increase it 10% to make up for it. Turn it back over to
Okay,
you.
expenditures. This is an expenditure pie chart by program, actual for 2015. Approximately $41 million. As Darren said, some of that's just internal bookkeeping. It's really about $33 million total. The big operating centers are debt service, public safety, and public operations. Public operations is the public utilities and the street department, the streets. Those are the big three expenditure programs for the city. One of the other big expenditures is under personnel health insurance. You recall the city had the same third-party carrier for years and years and years. The city's self-funded, and our costs were continuing to grow, and we couldn't find a handle on it. So we decided to try. We went a different direction, and we went with a different group, and we carved out all our individual parts of the health insurance, where we went with like 5 different providers. We got a third-party administrator. We've got a health claims providers care network. We've got a prescriptions. We got a dental, and we got a stop-loss carrier. And those are all separate, so we can see where our costs are, so we can try to contain costs going forward. And so far, it's worked out well for the city. In 2015, the Health Reserve Fund had $169,000 at the end of the year. And at the end of 2015, at the beginning of 2015, it had $169,000. At the end of 2015, it ended with $369,000. So we were able to save $200,000 for reserves in the health fund. And we'll continue to look at that every year. This is a interesting chart here. This is a health insurance revenues and costs. The red is the cost. The green is the revenues, going back to 2007. There's only been 1, 2, 3 years where the green was out higher than the red, and 1 year where it was even. So luckily, the city had reserves on hand to absorb those costs. But this is the direction we need to be going right here, is keep the green above the red every year. Move on to debt. This chart here is the legal general obligation debt limit of the city. It's right now, in 2016, it was just under $25 million in total debt. And this line up here, this flat line, the state statutes are 30% of your valuation is the limit you can have for GO debt. As you can see, we're way below that line. This is what we call our waterfall chart. This has all the debt with a different color by principal and interest due each year. And this little green chunk right here, if you can see that, that's the public safety debt that's going to be falling off in 2017. So that's all going to go away, and this whole thing's going to drop down.
Before you go to reserves, you jumped over the capital projects. And since they're being paid for with debt, I think we ought to.
Find it. Oh, there. I'm sorry. I must have double clicked.
We did that on purpose. Okay, these are our big expenditures. You know, operating is obviously huge, but we have to continue infrastructure improvements like East Quincy this last year. Everybody remembers the improvement. We've done the intersections at 20th and Broadway. We continue to carry some of that debt, but our plan is to retire debt as we go and then incur enough that we just keep that debt at the same level rather than going back to the taxpayers and saying, okay, now we've got to do something huge or letting it fall to repair. So in doing that, the next one up is South Rouse street improvements. That's obviously going to be from Centennial, we've talked about this a lot, to the south city limits. It'll be 3 lanes. It'll be an improved road. It will look very much like Quincy is going east from Broadway. It's something that probably should have been done when the area was developed originally. I don't know how it didn't get done, but heard a lot about it, and it's going to get done now thanks to y'all. And our debt levy for this year is going to pay for a lot of that. The airport runway improvements, critical project for economic development. The runway has not been resurfaced in 18 years, so I wish our streets would hold up that well. I think they have a little more traffic on them than the runway does probably. But the sun still beats down. It's time to do that. Cameron's been instrumental in getting that scheduled. That's a 90-10 match, so we only have to pay 10% of that. And then the next year, we will be actually doing the extension of our main runway by 600 feet, taking it to just under 6,100. That's a big deal. We have a lot of bigger jets. The people at the airport continue to buy bigger jets because they have more work to do in farther away places is the way I like to think of it, but I don't know what, maybe they just like bigger jets. But whatever it is, they're buying bigger jets, and they need a safer place to operate those, as well as we can entice other people that are flying over to come down and buy our fuel if we have longer runways. So it's a win-win for everybody. It's another good 90-10. We pay 10%. That will be next year. Both of those local costs for those 2 projects will be paid with bonds, and so that's going to be in the bond package. A couple other things that jump up. The Kansas Crossing Casino infrastructure. We are preparing a development agreement which will have you issuing $6.5 million worth of debt for the casino, and everybody's like, oh my gosh. The idea is, by state statute, the casino has to pay all their costs. Part of us being a good partner was when somebody comes to us and says we have to put $30 or $40 million into this project and we're going to borrow the money. They borrow it at a certain rate from their bank. What we negotiated with them is, and they've done this with Mulvane and several other communities where they built it, we get money a lot cheaper at the city because of our finance director and all that he's done. We get AA bonds instead of A- like we did. We can probably borrow money for about 2.5%. So it would save them if, when they're done with all their utility improvements, we can go through, issue bonds, put that on the books. They get the money at 2.5% instead of 5 or 6, whatever they would get it at for their bank. And then we set up a special assessment district. They become the only payee. They pay that over 20 years. It helps them out. It's very, very low risk to the city because we also have them do a personal guarantee with their assets. So if something happens, if the thing goes out of business, we basically get all those utilities, which we go ahead and own for the long term, but we didn't have to pay for them. So it's a good thing to do as a partner. It's something they've done before. It's something we feel like we're in the position to do, and it will be handled with special assessments. Another much smaller version of that is North Walnut Street. We're currently prepared to do to have 28th Street built into a normal street right there below where Tractor Supply Company is going to come right off of Broadway going west. As Cameron and, you know, everybody wonders what we do all day. We do have a lot of meetings, but they're not, you know, HR meetings to talk about what color shoes we want the workers to wear next year. They're things like, what are we going to do with this road and what should we be doing? And as we looked at it, North Walnut, coming off of 28th, going north up to the TIF district, is an area where if we can work with the property owners of those two sites, or actually there's about 4 sites, we can use those as new development sites if we get a road in there. It'll also help serve the Tractor Supply Company, because any of you familiar with how they operate, 18-wheelers coming in off of Broadway, turning right there with all the traffic that's across from Walmart. It can be done, and we will work with the state to make it happen, but the easiest thing is to get them coming up and through that TIF where there's a lot less traffic. So we're looking to improve that road. We'll build it out into a road. We'll have 2 special assessments that will go to each of the property owners. We'll pick up a third. It'll be a third, a third, and a third. And it's the opportunities there to do it now. And like I said, it'll create more developable land for our business owners in the community, so it looks like something that we think we should do. But we'll bring it before you for your approval and consideration before we do it. But it is planned in here. And those are really the big capital projects.
Yep, that's it.
And I think just keep on going. I jumped in the middle of it.
Well, that's fine. Reserves. Reserves are something that every city should take a careful look at, make sure they have reserves where they need to be. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends minimum reserve levels at 16% of revenues for governmental funds and two months of expenditures for enterprise funds. 2 months of expenditures is 16% too, by the way. I look at it like, for the general fund, I'd like to have 16% of expenditures, 2 months, which is 2 months expenditures instead of 2 months of revenues. Because if you got the 16% of expenditures, it'll take care of itself. During the Great Recession of 2008 and going forward for 3 or 4 years, our property valuations were declining, and we had reserves, luckily, to absorb the costs going through the budget years. But we need to address like the general fund reserves for 2017, because they're getting to a too low of a level in for financial safety, I believe. This little graph here is what we call restricted and unrestricted reserves. Restricted reserves are things like economic development funds, the STCO funds, the health insurance fund, things that are restricted for a specific purpose or designated for a specific purpose. And those are in orange. The green is unrestricted, which is discretionary funds. You can see that the greens are all staying about the same until 2017, and then we start to grow them. The gold or restricted funds have declined, and or declined here because of we've doing some debt. We're prepaying some of that public safety sales tax debt, which was restricted funds. We couldn't use it for anything else but debt, and also some economic development activity, like for downtown. We dedicated funds for the downtown projects. There's the 4th and Broadway, then the other housing project, and the Lord's Diner, and those types of things. This little graph here is the general fund operating reserves, including the public safety sales tax that was passed in 2013 and went on the books in 2014. And this line here is the 16% we should be at, which is 2 months of expenditures. And based upon our 5-year plan, if we do those recommendations, we'll start hitting that point in 2018. And this also includes the projected casino revenues as well in the future. Now, that same graph, without the public safety sales tax in it, you can see that although we gained some ground here, it's still below the threshold. So it's quite a contrast when you take it off, because it's an earmarked tax. So this is the public utility operating reserves. This black line is the 2-month expenditure threshold. As you can see, the public utility is in good financial shape here. Okay, now we're going to do the summary and recommendation.
Okay, we're about done. We can't talk about next year's budget without talking about the tax lid. I don't want to give everybody an education on this. We've spent 8 months talking about it. To be short and sweet, it was passed this year. It goes into effect January 1st. Actually, it was passed last year, but it was supposed to go into effect next year, so they did us the favor of moving it up a year. So it's going to go into effect January 1st. There were some amendments to it this year. It's a much friendlier bill, but it is still a tax lid, and it restricts your ability to perform your core service, which is setting a funding amount to determine a way to fund what services you think the city of Pittsburgh needs. The 27 budget will be the last time we don't need to have an election if we want to increase the tax levy. Okay, so that's not to say that we need permission to increase the tax mills. So if we go from 60 mills to 62, it's saying when you take the mills and you take it with your valuation growth, which we just saw for the first time in 9 years, we have to go to the taxpayers and ask if we can spend that and recognize that if it's over the 5-year average of the CPI, which for us is about 80 grand. To put it into perspective, the electricity increase that we received from Westar this year,
100,000 from 15 to 16.
was 20,000 more than that, and that's not part of the CPI. So the index they've given us to adjust on how much we can spend without having to have an election doesn't even include our largest expenditure, which is electricity. So it's pretty silly. It is what it is. A lot of people fought hard to get it to where it is. We have some good exemptions, but for the most part, that is a hurdle that we will continue to deal with after this year. And for that reason, you click in there. These are the assumptions with this 5-year financial plan that we've presented to you and where we'll be heading with the 2017 budget recommendation that you'll see. 1% annual growth in sales tax. That's based on the fact that right now we're sitting at 1% for the year. So we budgeted 2, we're looking at 1. I still think it's going to come in stronger than that, but there's just no rhyme or reason to the collections. The fact that we're at 1 and we're putting the budget together makes us think that we probably should just be conservative and put it at 1. The 0.25% of the assessed valuation, I'm assuming it's only going to go up. We're building more stuff. The casino's coming on next year, so I guarantee it's going up next year. That's not on state property. That's not tax exempt like a lot of the things that we were fortunate to have the university do, but they were all on university property, so they're exempt. The casino is actually going to be in the city. It's going to be taxable, and it's going to make a difference on that. All the rest of the revenues, the franchise, those things, we projected a minimal growth. Health insurance costs are going to go up 5%. Once again, we did some really great things a couple of years ago. We saved the employees from having to adjust their plans, and we saved the taxpayers a couple $100,000. I hope you noticed in that earlier slide. But that doesn't mean that they still, apples to apples, are going to go up 5% every year. What they're not going to do is go up 30% every year. And we actually had some pretty big claims, but with the stop loss, even though we had a bad year, we can control that. So I think this is a pretty good number. The retirement costs and workers' comp insurance, they'll just continue to increase. I think workers' comp is going to go up at 5%. The retirement costs are set by the legislature for the most part. That's CAPERS and KPNF. Utility rates continue to rise. 5%. Property and liability insurance will go up 5%. Obviously, there's a trend here. As we all know in our personal lives, things only get more expensive. They rarely go backwards. You're gonna leave me alone to do this? I'll probably delete the whole thing. So the considerations, here's the things that the final considerations when we put this together before we make our recommendation. increase revenues incrementally. We don't want to be unrealistic. Revenues have taken a turn up. It's good news, but it'd be irresponsible to write some ridiculous revenues down on the books, and then this time next year, we're coming back to you saying, hey, we got to cut $400,000 out of the budget because we overprojected. I think that kind of sounds like what the state's been going through. You know, it's easy to, when you got a budget gap, to just say, hey, let's write up revenues, man, and go home early. But it really makes for a long year the next year, and Jamie would never let us. He is way too conservative for that. So we do have incremental increases in revenues. We're always going to monitor and control expenditures. Every 2 months, we come in here and show you guys where we are with the green and the red the chart. I think we do a good job of that because we want to increase reserves. That's our number one goal right now, is we get to a place where we have the reserves where they need to be, and they're not going to negatively affect our credit or anything, and then we can start talking about tax relief and doing some things, you know, that would probably make everybody happy. But right now, we've got to increase those reserves. They're not there, especially on the general fund side. We always practice long-term planning. We do more and more of that every day. Everybody on our staff's an excellent planner. They understand the importance of looking out 5 and 10 years. They do it as a regular practice, and we appreciate it. And we're going to continue to make data-driven decisions, which I think we've proven we're up to it. So the final recommendations, we're looking at a 2% salary increase for 2017 and again in 2019. I would love to recommend one every year, but we just don't have the revenues right now to do it. I think there is a time in the future where that could come. I think the casino could play a big role in that if we are calm about how we recognize those revenues and what we use them for. And I think we've all agreed, and you guys were very instrumental in that our priority is the reserves. And so let's not introduce, I mean, I think we could sit here as a group with who I see sitting behind me and probably list 16 or 17 new programs we'd all like to see in the community, because we care about our community that much, and it has a bunch of great people in it, and there's a lot of cool services that we could do, and we're going to work on those. But the priorities are the reserves, and we have to get them built up before we talk about that. So there will be no increase in 18. We'd recommend that again for 2019, and then obviously 2020 we'd go without salary increases. Those would be merit increases, not cost of living adjustments. So we would continue to do evaluations every 6 months, and at the end of the year, based on how employee performed, they would get some kind of increase. Increase the general fund mill rate by 4 mills, okay? To put it in perspective, we have increased the mill rate one time in 8 years, and it was for 3 mills, and it was a couple of years ago. And if you remember the charts, we stopped the reserve line from going like this. So we're holding the line. I do think, and we talked about it at working day, there's a couple things working in our favor. One is that we landed the casino contract. Now, it's not open. It's not even built yet, but it's on its way, and I think we're all confident that it's going to happen. The other thing is the valuation has gone up. But where we are struggling is we're not 1 year out from fixing our reserves. We're not 2 years out from fixing our reserves. We are probably 3 or 4 years out at fixing reserves if we increase the property tax by 4 mills. And while it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot, it's in the face of, if we don't do it this year, we are going to have an election. And if you think having an election to increase taxes, property tax, is going to be something that's going to be easy to pass, it's not like a sales tax where you can earmark it and say, we're going to buy this big red fire truck for $700,000, and you're going to get these gas masks, and you're going to get these boots, and you're going to protect these 12 people. A property tax goes to the general administration of the city. So it's a lot harder for a taxpayer, which is why we have the form of government we do, where we have 5 intelligent people that we educate, probably to the point that, you know, you're sick of hearing it, about what our needs are, and then you will set that rate. Not having that opportunity after this year, I know it sounds like a lot, but we're recommending a 4 mil increase for the general fund and a 1 mil increase for the debt service, with the idea, and I completely mean this, you can take it off later, okay? That's the point, that's the beauty of this form of government, is every year you're supposed to sit down and say, okay, are reserves good? Yes. Were we able to give raises if that's what we wanted to do this year? Yes. Were we able to pay for all the insurance and electricity and costs? Yes. Then maybe that's when you start looking at backing it down. But to be good stewards of the city financially, And we gave, I mean, like I wanted to tell you, we've only done 3 mills once in 8 years because it's a big deal. We're recommending the 4 and the 1. The 1's needed for debt, for the projects. We've got to continue to grow the city. We've got to continue to take care of the increasing traffic. And we need the 4. I mean, we cannot get our reserves where they need to be without it. And the charts you saw had the casino money in it and the 4 mills in it, and it still took us till 2020 before we were sniffing that line we need to be at. So I know that's a lot. That's the biggest thing in there. The final one's utility increases. We just need to do 1% a year to keep up with the cost of living so we don't fall behind. I think that's the last slide.
One more.
Is there a skull and crossbones slide? No. There's a thank you slide. And that thanks goes to everybody behind me and everybody that works for them. I know I think we were in May, we had working day. We try to get you this information early every year. We try not to change it by the time you see it today. It is the basis of our 5-year financial plan. And from now on, going forward, we are going to be talking about the 2017 budget. I'm going to submit at our next meeting, and you're going to consider, and hopefully we'll knock it out at the end of July. But those are our recommendations. That's a summary of how we got here, and we can try to answer any questions you've got today, or we can start next meeting. And you guys know you can call us anytime, any day, any questions. We're here to get you information because I know you're going to have questions and concerns, and we want to meet as all of those in the next month. Thanks. Good job, Jamie.
Thank you.
Have any questions this evening?
I would encourage people at home who have any questions, now is the time to bring them up and ask them. And the document is available. How could somebody get this if they wanted to look at it?
We put it online.
I think actually, I know it doesn't feel like it, but you just saw a summary.
Right.
We tried to just put up the charts, and so we could talk. The entire 5-year forecast, we'll consider that presented today. That will be available online. And
It'll be that book you guys had at the working day, which,
that's probably the one, if somebody has time, they really want to go through it, that's the one they need to read. Now, we probably could throw this summary out there as well.
Yeah.
Without the narrative, this could just make your head hurt. Thanks for your time, and thanks for your leadership, and
Good information.
we'll have a good month, and we'll get this figured out.
Hard work that you put
Very
into this,
understandable.
yeah.
Very understandable.
I'm sorry about all the IT stuff, I don't know whose job that is. It's hot
Jay
outside.
Myers. Gremlins.
It's in the wires.
Okay, are there any non-agenda reports or requests this evening?
No,
We have
Oh,
one.
wait.
we have
Uh-oh.
We have to consider-
resolution.
We have one item to consider, I think.
Oh, yeah, paying off, sorry. Yeah, consider the following, resolution number 1182. Consider resolution number 1182, authorizing the redemption of the city general obligation bond series 2007B maturing on September 1st, 2018. Jamie?
If you recall, we did the same thing last year. When we issued bonds to pay for the public safety facilities, the maturity ran out to September 1st of 2018. But based upon the sales tax collections, we were able to pay $1.2 million of that final 18, or $1.8 million principal in 18. We paid $1.2 million of that last year, and now I'm requesting this resolution to pay the remaining $600,000 of that portion of the bond early, which will be paid this September, thereby allowing the city to have those bonds paid in full September 1st of 2017, 1 year early. And based on my projections, it's that the sales tax will either come off June 30th of 2017 or September 30th of 2017, based upon if we have enough taxes collected to pay those, pay that debt service. But it will come off in 2017.
Great.
Question?
Oh, this will save us $46,000 in interest as well on the $600,000 tonight.
Great. I'd move to approve.
I was going to ask before, sorry, what allowed us to be able to do this? Can you?
Well, it's just based upon our sales tax collections. When the bonds were sold, it was based upon whatever estimate at that time was the revenue the 0.5% would generate. Well, over time, it's generated enough to prepay 1 year off the debt maturity. So
And another thing to keep in mind, and most of this happened before I got here, so I'm not taking credit for it. The city spends the money the way they say they're going to spend it. There's a lot of ways to get to money, and the state, you can tell, does a good job of it right now, of, hey, if there's money and we need it, we're gonna find a way to go get it. The reason this thing is paid off early is because the citizens got a promise from the commission that if they put this on there, they would use it only for this, and they would pay it off as soon as they could. And that is exactly what's happened, and I think that says a lot about the folks that came up with that idea and the stewardship of everybody that was here before me and Jamie we are sticking to the plan, and we're paying it off early, and it's good news for all the taxpayers, so thanks.
It's overall, it's saving over $200,000 in taxes for the taxpayers by paying it off, in interest costs by paying off here early, so.
Good stuff.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, now non-agenda reports and requests.
One, on behalf of all the 4th of July people out there, it's time. It's the Monday, sometime after dark. I don't know what time. I think $28,000 worth of fireworks are going to be blown up in the sky over Pittsburgh, so if you're around the area and you want to come in, please come enjoy it. There's a whole weekend of activities. Looks like we've had enough rain, so hopefully it'll stop and let us enjoy the weekend rather than rain through it, but it should be a safe holiday, and I just want everybody to know that Pittsburgh welcomes you, and please come enjoy it, and should be a good weekend.
And thanks to all of those who paid for the $28,000.
Definitely.
Because it's not city dollars.
No tax dollars in those fireworks.
And all those people who went and raised that money, not only gave it, but asked for it. A lot of work.
Yeah, a lot of work. It's a year-long effort to raise that money, and it's about 30 minutes of insanity when it goes off. It's pretty loud. That's all we've got.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.